This tutorial covers the shifters of demand in detail, and for the shifters of supply, you have to watch the next one. There are 5 shifters of demand curve. Shifters of demand curve refers to your demand is changing, either it is increasing or decreasing depending upon the situation. So the first one is change in tastes and preferences. This is due to several reasons, that there is a new fashion trend, or maybe there is a change in weather, or you can consider the current case of coronavirus pandemic. It has affected your preferences to stay in, or your preferences to consume more hand sanitizers. So, change in tastes and preferences affects your current consumption, and that's how it affects your demand curve. Second shifter is change in future expectations. So, a lot depend upon future expectations. You might expect a sale on any brand, or you might expect a decrease or an increase in a price of, let's say, wheat, rice, or any commodity. Or you can even expect your future income to rise. This will also affect your demand because your current consumption will be affected. Third one is change in number of consumers, which is very simple and self-explanatory. So, for example, if a lot of people move into a new town, what happens? You have a lot of consumers. Or if a lot of people leave a country due to brain drain, what happens? You have less consumers. Or even in current scenario, due to coronavirus, a lot of people are dying. So this is also affecting the number of consumers and changing the demand. Fourth one is change in income. Whenever there is a question regarding income, you need to understand the nature of commodity. There is either a normal good or there is an inferior good. Normal good is any good. As your income rises, you demand more of that good. For example, if your income increases, you might demand more luxury cars, or you might consume more meat or more seafood. And if your income decreases, you demand less of these commodities because it's expensive to afford. Another good is inferior good. So it's the good as your income rises, you demand less of a particular product. For example, if your income increases, you demand less public transport, or you demand less second-hand mobile phones. And as your income decreases, you prefer more of a specific good. So let's say if your income is decreasing, you might prefer more public transport over cars. So that's the concept of normal and inferior good. The fifth one is change in price of related goods. So again, this one is comparatively tricky. Whenever there is a question regarding related goods, you need to understand there are complementary goods and substitute goods. So substitute goods are any pair of goods which are oftenly used in place of each other, or you can say alternative goods. For example, cow's milk, almond milk, or butter, margarine. Coke is used in place of Pepsi. This is an example of substitute goods. And then you have complementary goods. So complementary goods are the one which, like, it's a pair of goods which is oftenly used together. So the combination may vary as per your subjective preferences, but generally there is a traditional concept of cars and petrol which are oftenly used together, or computer and softwares, mobile phones and SIM cards. These are complementary goods. Let's analyze the market for hand sanitizers. So we know that due to the current outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, There is a change in demand for hand sanitizers. Now people prefer to buy hand sanitizers. So there is a drastic rise in demand for this commodity. This will shift the demand curve towards right. So the blue dotted line you see, that's the new demand curve. And you also move towards the new equilibrium. This blue dot you see, that's your new equilibrium point where demand intersects supply. So you see that at new equilibrium you have price 20 and quantity demanded, quantity supplied 40. Whereas at the previous equilibrium, before the shift, you were at equilibrium price 15 and quantity 30. So remember, even though you know this is a change in tastes and preferences case, but you won't be always informed whether it's a demand shifter or a supply shifter. So you have to analyze three questions. First, you have to understand whether it's a shifter of a demand or a shifter of supply. Change in taste preferences is a shifter of demand. Second, you need to understand the change in scenario, whether it's affecting demand positively or negatively, as in whether the demand is rising or it's decreasing. Third, you have to analyze what is the new point of equilibrium and how the prices and quantity demanded and supplied has been affected. So in this case, we know this is a shifter of demand. The demand curve increases, so demand shifts towards the right. Third, we see there is a new market equilibrium point with a higher price and higher quantity. So change in future expectations, they affect your current consumption level. Let's suppose you're expecting the price of rice to increase next month. How will this affect consumer demand? Definitely, if you're expecting rice to be expensive next month, you would buy more today and store. So your demand curve will shift towards right because you're demanding more rice now. So this increase will lead toward a new equilibrium, which is depicted by the blue dot, and you see at a higher price and a higher quantity than the previous equilibrium. So that's how changes in future expectations affect your current consumption. Change in number of consumers. Let's take an example of current situation. We know that a lot of people are losing their lives due to coronavirus pandemic. So how does this affect the market of wheat? Dying people means that you have less consumers. So less consumers refers to a decrease in demand in the market of wheat. So as the demand decreases, it's very clear you move to a new point of equilibrium with a decrease in price level and also a decrease in quantity. So remember, as I mentioned earlier, whenever there is a question regarding changes in income, you have to analyze whether the question is about a normal good or the nature of commodity is an inferior good. So generally you will be informed in questions that whether this commodity is a normal good or it's an inferior good, so you have an idea about the shifters. Anyways, coming towards scenario 1. Let's suppose your income has increased and we're analyzing the market for luxury cars. Definitely when your income rises, you demand luxury car. So your demand for luxury car rises and you move to a new equilibrium with a higher price and higher quantity. Coming towards the scenario of inferior goods, generally we know public transport is regarded as an inferior good. And the scenario is same, your income increases. Definitely, as your income increases, you will demand less public transport because you can afford a car. So now you see, same scenario. In both scenarios, your income level is rising. But in the case of normal good, that is luxury car, you're demanding more. But for the case of inferior good, which is public transport, you're demanding less of that. So let's analyze the goat's milk and cow's milk market. Remember, whenever there is a question regarding changes in price of related good, you should understand either it's a case of substitute goods or complement goods. So this one is very clear. It's the scenario of substitute goods. Substitute goods are the one which are used in place of each other. And we know that there are several types of milk. So let's refer to the scenario that there is an increase in price of goat's milk from 10 to 20. Now, what will happen to the demand for the market of goat's milk? Nothing. The demand will stay same, only quantity demanded will change. Remember, price only changes quantity demanded or quantity supplied. It never changes demand or supply. So in this scenario, when there is an increase in price of goat's milk, due to law of demand, a higher price induces consumers to buy less. So, at initial equilibrium, you see that your quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied, but as the price rises to 20, you see quantity demanded is less than the market equilibrium point and quantity supplied is more. That is due to law of demand and law of supply. Higher price means consumers are gonna buy less, and higher price on the other hand means that suppliers will supply more because they will receive a higher price. So in simpler words, price will only change quantity demanded, never the demand. But this increase in price of goat's milk will affect the demand for cow's milk. Remember, cow's milk was at the same price, and due to an increase in price of goat's milk, people are demanding more cow's milk. So this will shift the entire curve for cow's milk. And now at the new equilibrium, you see that there is an increase in price and increase in quantity for cow's milk. So this is the final scenario. Again, the case is same. There is a change in price of related goods. But the difference is this is not substitute, this is complement goods. We know that complements are pair of goods which are oftenly used together, like petrols in cars. So in this scenario, let's assume the price of petrol rises from $10 to $20. So due to a rise in price, the equilibrium is distorted for petrol. Definitely the demand curve will not shift because price does not change demand, it only change quantity demanded and quantity supplied. So here what happens? A higher price induces consumers to buy less. So you notice quantity demanded decreases from the initial market equilibrium point and quantity supplied rises. That is due to law of demand and law of supply. But the question is, what will happen to the market of automobile when price of petrol rises? So as we know, these goods are oftenly used together. A rise in price of petrol will decrease the demand for automobile because it's expensive. So the demand curve shifts left for automobile, and you see at new equilibrium you have a lower price and lower quantity. So that's how changes in price of related good works. You have to be very clear whether the scenario is regarding complements or substitutes.